Hi, and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of March 9, 2020. First, let's do a quick recap of the predictions for the previous week. In terms of the stock market direction, I was correct 3 out of 5 days. Basically, my predictions for the last week were that the market would continue going down every day. And on 2 of the days, I believe it was Monday and Wednesday, market actually showed, or I guess there were some rebound, and there were fairly large moves up. And let's see, then as far as various events, the ongoing prediction and because of the ongoing influence that we have is has to do with Saturn conjuncting Pluto in Capricorn, which has to do with various massive changes in the top of the governments or corporations, restructuring, reshuffling in the governments, removal of the old leaders or leaders stepping away, or entities that have been known and kind of stable for a long time undergoing some major changes that could be major political figures, important maybe entertainment personalities, large established corporations, etc. So out of those, I didn't see any major earthquakes. By that I mean like 6.0, not larger, or any sort of news about volcanic eruptions. There was news about a Chinese hotel that was housing coronavirus patients collapsing, which definitely is kind of a manifestation of this influence, considering that the Pluto and Saturn conjunct usually in general correspond to various disasters, as well as the onset of various major epidemics such as AIDS that we had back in the 80s. And in terms of just important personalities, leaders kind of stepping down or passing away, we had news last week about the, legendary GE CEO Jack Welch dying basically at 84. Then I guess already this week on the 9th, I believe, there was news about the famous actor from, let's see, I already missed that. From Ingmar Bergman's Seventh Seal, and I guess he also played in Game of Thrones. Max von Sydow died at 90, and we also had MSNBC Chris Matthews, host of Hardball, who was, I guess, hosting it for over 20 years, stepped down. And we also had news about an actual, established, well-known company, specifically Australian Associated Press, had shut down on the 2nd of March after 85 years in business. And some other news, basically my predictions were for the past week that there will be increased news and focus on banks, financials, as well as things to do with all these Neptunian matters, such as, of course, gas, chemicals, oil, navy, wet weather, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, and any sort of places of isolation, which again, we had news, of course, about this coronavirus, hotel in China that housed the coronavirus patients collapsing, but also, of course, more news about coronavirus and news about significant drop in price of oil, which I specifically predicted that those kind of news would come up on the 8th and 9th of March. And also news from like Iran that they temporarily, I'm not sure how that can be done temporarily, but temporarily released 70,000 prisoners. And again, prisons, monasteries, hospitals, all of those places are under sort of the rule of Neptune, because again, they're places of isolation, be it voluntary or sort of by force. And we did have, of course, more news of that nature, including, I guess, I think it was this weekend or already on Monday, on the 10th, that there was an explosion in Spain of the chemical plant. And in terms of increased focus on finance, there are multiple news related to that. So just to quickly touch on that, multiple sort of large national banks, such as, European Central Bank and Bank of Japan, and I believe U.S. Federal Bank, Federal Reserve, I'm not sure, but basically multiple national central banks have pledged to basically come up with various extraordinary measures to help the economy because of the coronavirus. And in the US specifically, Federal Reserve had basically come up and they did the emergency rates cut on the 3rd of March, and also on the, I believe it was on the 9th of March, where New York Fed had announced that they would increase daily overnight repo operations to at least 150 billion from 100 billion. So basically we will have, and kind of moving into this week, there will be continuing focus on similar topics, banks, financials, as well as, of course, all the Neptunian matters, which again, oil, gas, chemicals, places of isolation, and pharmaceuticals, but also say movies, music, audiovisual equipment, or companies that basically are in business either selling it or producing videos. So all of that will see increased focus, and particularly on the 9th of March, which I'm recording this actually a day late than my usual blog, just because I was very busy. I did predict, however, several weeks ago that March 8 and 9 will see significant news about like upsetting news about like oil, chemicals, gas, and also that the 9th was going to be a major drop day, and in fact it was. Market went down, I guess. It was one of the worst, I guess, days for US stock markets in history. Then for the stock market direction for this week, I basically predicted, I think, again, every day to be a down day. As of the 10th of March, I see that on the 10th it actually rebounded. But again, things to me look not so great. And this will continue through about early April. So I would not be, I personally am not trying to chase these up and downs, and I think overall tendency of the market or direction of the market will be down until at least early April. And in particular, end of March may see some strong market moves. In particular, in the upcoming days, I would note, not necessarily just this week, but even into following few weeks, March 17th through the 20th, especially 18th, 19th, may see really strong market volatility, possibly a reversal from the 18th to the 19th, down on the 18th to up on the 19th, as well as there may be some increased focus on governmental restrictions and regulations, such as maybe as we had actually had, I believe it was on Monday on the 9th, where, you know, certain trading had to be halted because of, again, the swings were just too much. The size of, I guess, the drop was too much, even in the futures. So we may see something similar to that. And so increased controls or closures or slowdowns, delays, various cautionary measures. Again, that's around March 17th, 20th, especially 18th, 19th. So going back to this week, let's see, for China, and I think I previously mentioned that before, March 9th through 20th is going to be a fairly significant period, especially March 11th. There may be an important announcement or development that involves large numbers of people or is known to many people or somehow basically affects a large group of people. And this may have to do with stock market, savings, entertainment industry, casinos, gambling, risky behaviors, raising children, and or airspace, telecoms, electric power, high tech, or IT. The announcement may be unexpected and or come as a surprise, but will probably be received well by the public. So it may be either something along the lines of like measures to support one of these industries. For example, high-tech companies or telecoms, or there may be some news about basically maybe something reopening, maybe some casinos that were open, rather closed, that can reopen. So there might be some major move, I guess, perhaps to support the stock market or help, I guess, secure some savings for the population. So there may be something along those lines, but it may be a fairly major announcement in China. And speaking of China, the coronavirus outbreak, I believe there will be multiple ways of that. And the kind of the more serious time, or the more important time, is still kind of ahead of us, and it might be between sometime August and November, where things may get kind of more serious, until maybe past late November, where things might finally be kind of fixed for good, or be kind of calming down with respect to the coronavirus outbreak, especially in China. And however, along sort of a vision ahead, I see that in around 2025, 2026, we may have either a different epidemic / pandemic, or it will be another, maybe mutation of this virus or something along those lines. Could be something completely different, but there may be an even worse kind of a situation that may also involve flu. We will have a similar transit at the time in 2025-26 that was in place under, at 1918, when we had Spanish flu. And I guess I remember seeing that something had been happening where there were some other epidemics also of like flu type viruses preceding the Spanish flu outbreak. So without kind of being, an expert in this area, it's possible that this will be a mutation of what is happening right now, or it could be a release of, some bioweapon, or just problems with water being contaminated, because at the same time, 2025, there are some other aspects indicating kind of increase, because we have Neptune entering Aries, which has to do with, of course, droughts, wars over oil, contamination of water, or even drought, basically insufficiency, I guess, of clean water. The water may not be available. This may cause fighting. Or, of course, Neptune having to do with life sciences, etc., and combined with Aries being, the sign of war and spores, we may have to do with we may hear more about perhaps doping, or some strict measures, or perhaps first really kind of too many athletes being caught doping, and then some major restrictions being implemented. Or there may be some new way of basically people using drugs, including for sports enhancement, and or for being weaponized. So that again may potentially coincide with another major flu or some other type of viral outbreak. That's in 2025, but again, that may relate to what's happening currently in 2020. Oil prices. So we had, as predicted, major announcements about oil on March 8 and 9, which of course led to fairly major market panic. And there may be, not maybe, but I'm thinking, because this announcement about oil, the kind of I guess, OPEC and Russia disagreement, and then Saudi Arabia announcing some plans to slash crude oil prices and increase production. All of that coming out right around the time of full moon, and Neptune being conjunct Sun, opposing Moon. So again, Neptune has to do with oil and things like that. And of course, the healthcare, coronavirus outbreak, all of the above. Because of the news coming up about oil and oil prices basically going down right around the 9th, I think that we will have a cycle of sort of 28 days, with potentially midway, 2 weeks from now, there being an announcement of potentially some changes or some new developments. But the announcement that occurred right now may have effect for at least next 4 weeks. So basically there may be some suppression of oil prices for, I'd say, at least 2 weeks, possibly 4 weeks, and there may be an announcement around April 12 about, again, changing the direction or some follow-up actions by, involved entities, maybe Saudi Arabia or OPEC decision or something like that. And halfway point would be new moon on March 24th, where that also could be a significant day. So again, some sort of follow-up decision may be announced, maybe change in sort of in the policies regarding the production or oil prices, and or in addition to kind of this focus on oil around, like I said, March 24th and then April 12th, around March 27th, so it could be 24, 25, 26, 27, around that time. Additionally, there may be important time for not just announcements about oil prices, perhaps again going down, but there may also be news about pharmaceuticals, infectious diseases, maritime incidents, accidents, religious figures, and particularly again March 27th, there may be again another big sort of a oil price drop, and or announcements about, again, say presidents or religious figures, passing away or having problems, or maritime accidents again. Like we have these news about the cruise ships and having people being sick with coronavirus on the cruise ships. Again, cruise ships, this has to do with, again, Neptunian matters. So anywhere where you have, double sort of influence of Neptune, meaning on the cruise ship with coronavirus, surrounded by water, or you're in prison or in hospital, even with the coronavirus, has this signature of Neptune. When you try to multiply all of the above, you're kind of getting things developing even faster, or things kind of becoming more significant around those places that have similar signatures. Basically, you're emphasizing the influence of Neptune. So we may hear, like I said, news about these kind of matters being either oil related, March 27th, potentially a big oil price drop, or more news about the coronavirus, but with accent on things kind of getting worse, and or say affecting more people who are on a cruise ship, religious leaders, some were indeed in prisons, or they're stuck in another Neptunian sort of location. Maybe it's a monastery, even a retreat, where they went for some spiritual, enlightenment. So let's see. Also, April 3rd, we'll likely see increased news related again to these same matters: oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, as well as navy, water, diseases, pollution, etc. And at that time, on April 3rd, the focus may be on retail sales, agreement negotiations, and communication transportation. So this could mean basically that if there was a delay or problem with transportation, perhaps of sick people, then maybe things at that point are given the green light. So if the cruise ship is allowed to disembark, if there's a shipment of oil is allowed to go through, or vice versa. If something was in progress already, then it may be halted. Let's see, and we may also hear around that time, April 3rd, about some agreements involving the areas above. So maybe if there's an agreement about, say, oil prices among, OPEC members, or OPEC and Russia, or perhaps agreement between, pharmaceutical companies to start the sale of a particular drug, or to price, certain drugs certain way, or, a new way of delivering medical supplies. And looking even further ahead, June 8th through 15th, especially June 10 and 11, may yet again see increased focus on oil prices and news about the same kind of topics, such as maritime accidents, fighting over oil, or like we had previously, like a maybe fire at a marina, so it could be attack on a oil processing facility, fire at an oil rig, or a volcano explosion where a volcano is on some sort of an island surrounded by water. So there's kind of a mix of, hot and sort of wet at the same time. And related to this, June 10th and 11th may see also a large market drop. So again, could be some fighting over oil prices, and obviously market then goes down. So as I said before, focusing specifically on the market direction every day of the week, especially Monday, which was predicted weeks ago. I predicted this to be a down week basically overall. Tuesday didn't look as bad to me, but Monday I did predict weeks ago at my blog at listandgood.com that it would be a down day, and it was pretty major drop. Then on Wednesday, Thursday for US, this is an important time where specifically for US there may be increased focus on oil, gas, chemicals, religion, pollution, navy, water, fishing, beverages, pharmaceuticals, drugs, poisons, healthcare facilities, mental health facilities, prisons, monasteries. So basically you probably recognize that these are all Neptunian matters. And in the US again, these may kind of stand out, and there may be concerns about related businesses or projects not going so well. So the issues may have to do with confusion, uncertainty, lack of clear data, lies, deception, lack of limitations or containment, or lack of clear instructions on what to do. So for example, what dosage of the drug is an effective dosage, or what should the oil price be, or what should happen to maybe people or goods that need to be transported somewhere. Of course, any of this could be related, like what to do with prisons if there's a coronavirus infection there or something like that. So there may be confusion because again there's lack of information, lack of sort of clarity on what to do, and that may again contribute to market going down even globally. Let's see, then on Friday, I still think the Friday will be a down day, but it's not as certain as earlier in the week. Monday, like I said, was the most certain day because of the aspects. And Friday also will be a significant day for the US, where there will be, again, increased focus on banks, real estate, banks, assets, savings, retirement accounts, protection of the population. This includes food safety, homeland security, particularly safety of women and children, and various domestics or focus on domestic matters in general. There may be a leader that's appointed, or existing leader becomes more prominent, and this leader may kind of announce that they're stepping up to assure the population of the stability and safety in the domains that I just mentioned. So they may be coming up and positioning themselves as a protector of women and children, or they're taking some sort of stand on like pollution of the food supply, or they're ensuring that there is food supply, and or then ensuring that there's stability in, the banks are stable, that they're protecting people's assets, or that the bank's assets are protected. And so let's see, as I mentioned, for upcoming weeks, March 17th and 20th may be important, and there may be again stock market volatility, with particularly 18th of March maybe could be a very strong down day. And then subsequently for US, March 21st or 23rd, especially 22nd, look quite important as well. There may be focus on partnerships, enemies, negotiations, agreements, as well as retail sales, communication, transportation businesses, and that could include IT, cloud providers, cloud service providers, social media platforms, etc. And at that time, there may be some negative news about all of these areas. This could include various upsets, clashes, violent events, and anti-governmental protests. And or it could be domestic situation, and or US may just basically have upsetting or tense negotiations with some other partners, and or get involved in kind of arguments with not so friendly other countries. And these tense negotiations may be indeed necessary to respond to some sort of a threat or to prevent violence from an external source. There may be mutual accusations of spying or using debt, raised some sort of financial tool to manipulate or pressure one or more parties involved in negotiations. So it could be done, by the US or to US, or at the very minimum topics of like rates, investments, loans, debt will come up. And at the same time, there's an increase both globally and for the US on the 22nd of March, especially. There's an increased probability of there being a cyber attack or hacking, or just, mutual accusations of basically spying, hacking, etc., or of an actual attack. Something is hacked, and that something could be more likely something like a cloud providers experiencing an outage, or retail provider being under attack. So that could be one of those areas, or social media site may be down. And finally, and I mentioned that before, looking further ahead, June 8th and 15th through 15th, rather, could be another sort of important time where we may have yet again focus on oil and healthcare. So there may be increased news yet again, another wave related to coronavirus epidemic or some other type of outbreak, and or important announcements about healthcare and pharmaceutical in general, as well as oil, gas, chemicals, etc. And related to that, we may have major drop in the market, particularly June 10th and 11th. So that's it. Hopefully you had found this helpful, and you're having a great time despite this, the depressing news about the stock market and the coronavirus. And stay tuned. I'm sure that eventually things will turn around, but between now and I guess the end of April, I would exercise extra caution in terms of traveling and basically paying attention to your health. So until then, see you guys later. Catch you next week. Bye.